So now I'm going to share more about what John said in this interrogation with Adrian police and the FBI in January of 2011. This is just a couple months after the boys disappeared and 6 months before he was charged with causing their disappearance. Just to recap, if you are new, John Skelton served 15 years for causing the disappearance of his 3 young sons, ages 5, 7, and 9, Andrew, Alexander, and Tanner Skelton. In 2010, he served those 15 years, and right before he was set to be released, he was charged with their murders. We are now going through his preliminary exam to see if that case will move toward trial. So this is where the prosecution is presenting its evidence to the judge who will make that decision. So the prosecution is showing these interrogation videos, but remember that these are not established facts. This is what Skelton is saying happened during this questioning with the FBI and Adrian police. He was told that he did not have to speak with investigators, and he was read his rights. He still agreed to the interview. So he described what he said was an underground organization that took his sons, and he began talking to them around September or October of 2010. He said that he met a man named Virgil at a truck stop in South Bend, and that he told Virgil about the problems that he had been having with Tanya and his fear that Tanya was going to take the children. So Virgil gave John the name of someone who could help, and that when he returned home, he found a large manila envelope in his mailbox containing business cards and a phone. He said there was more than one phone involved and that some of the material was eventually burned. And I have to let you guys know that it was extremely hard to hear this audio. It was not good audio. It was muffled. It was almost like overly loud, but then quiet at the same time. And I was writing my scripts for our newscast, so this is not as detailed as I would prefer it to be. So he comes to meet a woman, Joanne Taylor, that we've heard all about through Virgil. And he also mentioned meeting people named Elijah, Judy, and Sue. And he said that he had multiple meetings with members of this organization, and that the group eventually came to his house in early November and then returned for another meeting around November 10th when the boys were there. So one theme that is coming out of this interview is the police, specifically the FBI agent, are really trying to get John to tell them who may have seen these people there. Did anyone see the phone? Did the children ever mention any of these strangers coming to the house? They had never really told anyone that they had met any strangers. So they're talking about how the children never talked about these things. And so they're really trying to probably get John to talk as much as he would and contradict himself, which he did. And they're trying to see if he mentions anything or anyone that they could go talk to about this group. Did anyone see a car? Anything we can work with here. So then the conversation also touches on John's internet searches. He was asked, why did he spend 2 hours searching about how to break someone's neck with his hands? His explanation was that he and the boys had been watching movies and the children had asked questions about whether something like that could actually be done. So then the next obvious question is, what movie were you watching? It's really interesting to see the investigators' questions too, because they were like, well, what were you doing on Thanksgiving? And he said, watching TV. And the investigator says, well, what football game were you watching? Which I think is a great question, because you want to catch them in those you want to get very specific, because most people are able to lie in big generalities. This is what I've learned from attorneys and law enforcement. But when you get into the nitty gritty, the minutia, they don't have that all figured out. So what football game were you watching? She just assumed that they were watching a football game, but he said we actually didn't watch football. But I thought that was interesting. So he said that he had picked the boys up from Tanya Wednesday, took them home. Then he said the members of this alleged organization came to his house that day around 4 or 5 o'clock. He said Virgil, Joanne, and the others were there. They brought children with them and they left the children at his house that night and they left. So he was there with 5 children in total. And then there were inconsistencies here about whose children they were. At one point, he said he thought that they belonged to Sue and Elijah, but previously told the FBI they were Joanne and her husband's children. And he identified them as 5 or 6 or 7-year-old twins. And he said he didn't know Joanne was married when he was asked about this discrepancy, and he didn't know which version was correct. It was also brought up during this interrogation that some neighbors had reported seeing the children playing outside on Thanksgiving Day. And I turned to someone in the media and whispered, well, then couldn't they just say that some stranger took the kids while they were playing outside? But then you have to remember all of the statements that John himself made about giving the kids to this Joanne Taylor and to the group and trying to protect them from Tanya. So while there could be room to opine that maybe the kids were taken by someone while they were out in the yard, you have all of these inconsistent statements, claims without any proof that we've seen to this point that are made by John himself.